tribute, with words and song, style of the song, keeping with the theme. Oh, we played Chris, like almost speak through, give him more season, so sweet inspired spirit going through. And will lead us all as we just work together, help us to have grace and love for one another. Lord, we ask that tonight you would stretch us as we think less of this question, this is what for us, and there's different people, Lord, who aren't guests, who maybe consider this the first time working together. So we ask you to be with us, Carrubbers now, help us to remember that it's your right journey, not our talent or anything else. Well, right now, 5, 3, 8 months. 6, 4, and 9 months. Got a birthday in 2 days. No, 3 boys. Got the baby now. Yeah, well, I know, that's it. Repopulate the market. I know, that's it. How many siblings do you have?
There are 3 of us.
Where are you two? Okay, so a big brother and a little brother. And where are they?
Pretty much your husband outside the ring.
Yeah, I know, that's not.
The teacher corrected me, like it's not correct, it's not the proper English, it's ignore.
So it's going to be a song of the beginning, a song at the end, and a song from Sept.
Yeah, you said 1 with 2 fingers, yeah. Yeah, you've got enough of it. No, it's good. We were at Wallingford this morning.
Hang on. What? The first song. So I was saying it's cable. What's the sort of pace of that again?
Was that? I don't know.
The speed.
Ah.
It's kind of. I feel like it was quite funky, but it's quite mellow at the same time. It wasn't funky, but it was quite upbeat. Yeah. Yeah.
So can I just encourage everyone to come in and find a seat at a table, and we'll start off in a minute or so, just if everyone can come in and sit down. But don't stop talking. There's plenty of seats at the front. There's two whole tables here, hardly taken. Okay, shall we make a start this evening? First of all, I want to say welcome to Carrubbers Christian Centre. It's good to see so many people. It's quite scary as well, because this is lots of people to talk to about a difficult subject, but it's good to see everyone tonight. Welcome especially to anyone that's visiting. A few new faces, new students. We will talk to you at the end and welcome you properly, so it's good to see everyone tonight. There are drinks on the table and snacks, so I hope that keeps you occupied and happy, even if what I'm saying doesn't. So please tuck in and enjoy it. Tonight's a bit different from what you may be normally expecting at a church service. We're going to have a discussion, and we're going to talk through some issues. And there's a chance at your table to talk a little bit about the things I'm bringing before us. Chance to think about things, work it out for yourselves, discuss. No right answers, no wrong answers, but it's an opportunity to talk together a bit different. We've got the house band, Phil and Aga, going to be giving us some music this evening. And we're going to ask a question. And the question is, have you ever wondered why life makes sense? So if you just say no, that's the evening ruined. So don't say that, which is the danger of all these. Have you ever wondered? Someone goes, no, not really. So, but I hope you have wondered why life makes sense, because what we're going to talk about tonight is that life does make sense, and there's a reason for life making sense. And hopefully we'll find that as we go through this evening. Before we start, Aga is going to sing a song about life being confusing at times. So, Aga and Phil.
So we're going to perform I Don't Know Where Life's Gone by Krzysztof Kijański. Going, don't know what we'll find. Restlessness keeps growing. We're running out of time. I don't know life's direction. Just choose my choice of chance. True love and affection is only caused by coincidence. I can read it in your eyes now. You're lost and you're confused. Let the feeling grow inside us. life's going. I don't know where life's going. I don't know where life's going.
Thank you, Aga. Thanks, Phil. And there's more from Aga and Phil later in the evening. So let's look at this. How do we make sense of life? How do we make sense of the world? Why does it even make sense at all? We look at the world with certain assumptions. We've each got a perspective that we bring when we look at the world. We make assumptions about how things are. And sometimes we need to think about those assumptions, the point of view that we bring. Does it make sense? Let's look at this video.
An event seen from one point of view gives one impression. Seen from another point of view, it gives quite a different impression. But it's only when you get the whole picture you can fully understand what's going on.
Ooh. That was an award-winning advert, probably from before most of you were born. But I remember watching it and thinking, oh, that's good. But of course, the second time you see it, it doesn't work. But it's got an important point. We all bring a perspective, a point of view by which we interpret what we see before us, but it's not always right, and we don't realize that we're doing it. Where do we start? We've got a lens that we look at the world through. Basic things that we take for granted about the world, that you can trust your senses, that your memory works, mine not sure, but that how things were yesterday is how they're going to be tomorrow. We don't realize it or think about it. We just take it for granted. There are things we assume in order to make sense of everything else. You know, we just expect gravity to keep working, don't we? We don't think about this very much. And I think we're a little bit like these fish. I don't know if you can read that. There's a big fish saying to the little fish, says, "Morning kids, how's the water?" And the two little fish look at each other and say, "What the heck's water?" They don't realize that there even is water. You know, they're in it, they're swimming around in it, they breathe it, they move in it, but they don't see what's going on. And that's what we're like. We're swimming in a world of assumptions about the world that we never even think about or question. Well, we're going to question it tonight a little bit and think about some of those assumptions. Have you ever wondered, you've got to say yes to this again. Have you ever wondered why we can trust that the world is going to act predictably? We're going to think about that tonight and see it's actually a bit of a problem. It's a problem philosophically. And we're going to see if the Bible and the Bible's presuppositions, that the lens that the Bible brings to the world, see if that helps us. You know, there are lots of things that we just assume. We heat water and it boils, and we know that's going to happen. We know that time passes, that the seasons are going to follow each other. Spring is going to follow winter, and summer will follow spring, and sometimes it'll get nice in Edinburgh, and sometimes it won't. We know these things. We assume these patterns continue. We expect this is a bit hopeful, we expect our Wi-Fi to keep working. We expect the circuits in our phones to do the same things. But why? Logically, why does what's happened in the past mean that you can trust it to happen in the future? We see all these patterns in the world of how things always happened. And we assume that those patterns will just keep going. That pattern will always apply in the future because it's happened in the past. But can we be sure about that? Well, that's what we're going to think through a little bit tonight. We assume, If I jumped a slide. Yeah, we jumped a slide. This is actually a big philosophical question that people, the next one, a big philosophical question that people have been talking about for centuries. And it's still very much an issue today. Induction, it's the problem of induction, they'll call it. It's when we rely on patterns from the past to get a conclusion about what's going to happen next, what's going to happen in the future. We expect something to happen a certain way because it's always happened that way before. You know, we expect the sun to rise tomorrow because it's always risen in the morning. It's always done that. We expect winter to follow autumn because it's always followed autumn. That's just the way it is. We trust a friend to be reliable. Well, yeah, because they've always been there before for us. We get these patterns and we follow it and we think that's how things are always going to be. And we don't think about it, but we do this all the time in life in lots of different ways. We cook and we think the food will always taste the same. Well, depends who's doing the cooking, but that's where we get into faith. We think that the food will taste the same. We think the cooker will work the same. We drive, and when we press the middle pedal, we expect the brakes to work. And this is fundamental, not only to life, relationships. We expect people to behave in certain ways that we're used to, but also in science. Scientists develop ways of understanding the world based on their observations. They look at the world, they get data from experiments and from how the world works. And from that, they develop a model, they develop a law, a scientific law. Trying to understand the way things work by observing how things have worked in different circumstances. But that means they're relying on the truth of the data, that things will work out and continue to work that way the next time they do the experiment and the time after that. They assume that there's some order in the universe, some order in the world that they can discover. Do you recognize this? If you've been in Edinburgh for a while, you might recognize this. If you've just turned up this weekend, you will recognize this after you've wandered up and down the Royal Mile for a while. At the top of the high street, maybe 150, 200 yards from where we are now, this statue, and that is David Hume. So David Hume was a famous Scottish philosopher in the Scottish Enlightenment in the 18th century. And one of the ideas, one of the problems that he gave us was that we can never be 100% logically certain and sure that these patterns we've seen in the past will continue to hold in the future. And that, if you think about it, is wild. That puts everything in doubt. How can we be certain about anything? But we live as if we can be. We live as if there's order that we can discover and that things will continue to work that way. It's a question at the deepest level that thinks about, or it could affect, if you think about it too deeply, how you live, how you think, and how you do all sorts of things. Lots of philosophers have struggled with it. If you read any philosophy if you get into that university, people like Immanuel Kant, or later on Karl Popper or Bertrand Russell, and even economists like Keynes, as we'll see, have looked at this problem of induction. But it's also a problem now for things like AI. If you open ChatGPT or Grok on X and ask it to predict or talk about something, it uses a pattern from the past to try and predict something for the future. So these are big questions, and it's actually bigger and trickier than we might think. This whole idea of how can we trust that what's happened in the past is going to happen in the future. So I'm going to shut up for a minute and give you a chance to try and work out what I've been talking about. So in your tables, let's spend a few minutes, and what I'm going to ask you to think about is one thing that you rely on to stay the same day by day. Why do you trust it will keep happening that way? You know, it might be you trust the bus to arrive. That's you'll soon learn that won't work. You might you trust that the summer will be good weather, or you might trust a colleague will do their job, and you rely on these things. But why do you rely on these things? So just spend a few minutes talking together about, there's something you rely on day to day to stay the same? Okay, so, that's some good conversations we're going there. People looking puzzled, so I hope we can get through that. So I don't know what you were coming up with in your discussions. You might have said, you know, I expect the bus to arrive on time. I expect the food, I expect a Big Mac to taste the same. Awful. I expect my friend to be there when I need them, you know, or, you know, but why? What are the assumptions? Would you freak out if your phone just, every time you pressed a button, the wrong character came up on the screen? You know, we reach conclusions all the time based on our past experience, and it's true for everything. So I've introduced David Hume. Some interesting pictures of David Hume if you do an image search, but that's one of the best ones I could find. So that's David Hume, a philosopher, as I said, from this very city. And in 1748, he wrote a famous and a very influential essay called An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding. Snappy title, David. So he said, we can't prove that the future will be like the past. We can't prove that nature will always be the same as it always has been. If you get into logic, you can find out about valid arguments. So you might get a valid argument like every even number is divisible by 2. 8 is an even number, therefore 8 is divisible by 2. So yeah, that makes sense. You can work it out. Or there's a classic they always give you in logic classes or philosophy. They say, all men are mortal, Socrates was a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. Well, that's a valid argument. So we say, if every x means y, and we've got an x, therefore y, that's fine. But the problem is that we don't know all the x's. We don't know that we've got all the x's. It's like people talk about, changing the slide, people talk about, you hear someone described as the GOAT, that the greatest of all time, and they'll say, oh, he's the greatest of all time, Djokovic, or Tadej Pogacar, if you like cycling. Don't know, anyone like cycling? Is Tadej Pogacar the best cyclist in the world ever? Well, he is so far, but we haven't had all time yet. And you said the greatest cyclist of all time, and we haven't had all the time. So we can't say he's the greatest of all time. You know, we expect that the sun will rise tomorrow because it always has. But what if it didn't? So Hume called this the problem of induction, of assumption that nature, that things just stay the same and are uniform, the uniformity of nature. And the problem is you can't prove it without circling back to the assumption you started with. Nature's always the same. Well, why? Well, because nature's always the same. And you just keep on going round, and you can't prove it. It's like when, if the only time you've seen a swan is in Scotland, and all the swans you see are white, and you create for yourself a little natural law. You say, all swans are white. That's a law. Okay, all swans are white. That's the truth. Every swan is white. And then you go to Australia, and you see a black swan, and you think, that's right, my presupposition has just broken. My natural law has just broken, because not all swans are white. You know, I did an argument, you know, all swans are white, and then someone showed me a black one, and it's wrong. It might be a valid argument, but one of the premises is false. So it's not a sound argument. It's not a good argument. You expect the kettle to boil. You know, when you turn on the water and gets hotter and hotter, and it will boil. But David Hume would say we can't be certain that's going to happen, because it's always happened in the past, but we haven't boiled it an infinite number of times, so we know it'll always boil. How can we trust that those patterns are going to work? And it gives us massive challenges. You know, when we get into science, next slide, please. laws like gravity. So Newton's watching apples fall from the tree, and he saw apples fall down. And he works out, okay, two masses and inversely proportionate to the square of the distance between them, and that's always going to happen. But it's always happened so far like that. We don't know it's going to keep going like that. And it affects daily life. Things like trusting your friends or trusting the bus timetable. And as I said, AI. AI, artificial intelligence models, they learn by inferring patterns from what they've seen in the past. But when it does that, there's a limit to what they can predict, how reliable they are, or how the ability they're going to have to predict the future, because they're just guessing on the basis of what's gone before. So David Hume would say you can't say that there's a logical, consistent guarantee that the same pattern will hold in the future. We can't say Djokovic is the GOAT because we haven't had every tennis player ever just yet. So we've just got to leave that one. And people have tried to get around this in different ways. But ultimately, they tend to come back to things like probability. So next slide is about, it's always worked like this before. I can't be certain, but there's a 99% chance it's going to happen again. Even the economist Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, that you might hear of in a different context, he said, inductive arguments will affirm not that there's a certain matter of fact, but relative to certain evidence, there's a probability in its favor. So you don't know facts, you don't know certainties, but there's a good chance, it's probable. But, I don't know, ultimately, it's still, you're just guessing and hoping that things will hold together. So that hopefully has got you all nice and worried, and we'll sort you out after. Aga and Phil are going to sing again. And after that, I'll put a question up now while they're singing that you can think about and as they sing the next song.
So this is going to be Wake Me Up by Avicii. Feel my way through the darkness, guided by a beating heart. I can tell where the journey will end, but I know where to start. They tell me I'm too young to understand. They say I'm caught up in a dream. Well, life will pass me by if I don't open up my eyes. Well, that's fine with me. So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older. All this time I was finding myself. I didn't know I was lost. So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older. All this time I was finding myself. I didn't know I was lost. I tried carrying the weight of the world, but I only have two hands. Hope I get a chance to travel the world, and I don't have any plans. Wish that I could stay forever.
Thanks, Aga. Thanks, Phil. So maybe take 5 minutes again in your tables, and it's a similar question, but maybe think a little bit more deeply. What is one way you act like the world will stay predictable, like things that you rely on will continue, like maybe other things like the logic, the rules of logic, or what's right and what's wrong, or the things that you think you rely on day to day in how you work with other people and how you talk to other people. And what would it feel like if that changed? If what you thought was right and wrong yesterday was different tomorrow? Or if the logic you relied on didn't work anymore? Maybe spend 5 minutes thinking about those things. Put you out your misery. We'll start thinking again where we go with this. How do we find a solution? Some great discussions. I love this one. It is maths discovered or created. We'll get there. That's good stuff. So we solve Sudokus using the laws of logic. Non-contradiction. What can be in the boxes there? But how do you know those laws of logic are still going to apply tomorrow morning when you're on the metro, when the bus doesn't come on time. How do we know the world isn't just going to stab us in the back and things suddenly change? Well, I want to offer you tonight a solution, and that is about looking at the world through the lens that the Bible gives us. There is a solution, and it's back to our discussion at the start about presuppositions, things we assume, and how that can help us. You see, we live, as we've discovered, as if nature is uniform. We live as if we can trust these patterns, that the laws of logic will continue to work day by day, that some things are just morally wrong, always and everywhere. That's how we live. But that doesn't always make sense given what people say they believe. Many people say that there's no order, no design, no structure to the universe or the world. A consistent atheist would say the world is just a random set of atoms that came from nothing, flying around, interacting in odd ways. It's just all chemical reactions. You pour vinegar on baking soda, it bubbles. That's just what happens. Just a bunch of random reactions. But that doesn't give you any reason to believe in science or logic or morality or any of the things that we live as if they're true. We end up, if you believe that, you end up in some ways, people have said, as a functioning schizophrenic. You say you believe one thing, but live in a totally different way. We live as if there is order in the universe, but then we say it's all just random. What's the worldview of the Bible? The Bible offers a worldview, a set of presuppositions that make sense of the way we live, the way we live our lives and the way we experience the world. We're made in the image of God as rational beings. We see patterns and order in the universe. We know right and wrong. We love because all these things reflect the character and the person of the God who made us. It's only with him and what he reveals that we can make sense of what's going on in the world. Science came out of a Christian worldview, and it's only in the Christian worldview when things are ordered, when we're actually discovering maths, we're not creating it, that all this makes sense, that makes our modern world possible. The Bible, I'm arguing, offers a coherent and a predictable world. The worldview of the Bible gives us reasons to trust the laws, to trust that things will be the same tomorrow as they are today. Let's see what the Bible says about that worldview that we can take from the Bible. Well, the Bible says that there are seasons and days that will continue. God is keeping it going, and God will keep things going in the future as they've been in the past, to a degree. That there's a uniformity of nature that we can trust. We learn that in the Bible, in the New Testament, in the book of Colossians, the letters to Colossians, we read, talking about Jesus, he's before all things, and by him all things hold together. The foundation for things working predictably and things being reliable, there's an ultimate reality, and it's Jesus is behind all these things. There's a reason we can trust these laws. Isaiah, in the Old Testament, the prophet Isaiah said, "Thus says the one who is high and lifted up, who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy." God inhabits eternity. He's outside of time. He knows the future and he knows the past. And we can rely on him. We can rely on his word because he knows the future and the past. He knows all time. He knows if Djokovic is going to be the greatest of all time because he knows all time. That was supposed to get a laugh, but it didn't work. But he knows all time, so he knows who the greatest of all time is going to be. It's not induction for God because he knows it. He's got that knowledge. The Bible, God is consistent and omnipresent. 1 Samuel 15, we read, "The Eternal One of Israel doesn't lie, he doesn't change his mind. He's not a man who changed his mind." God is consistent. Your friend might let you down. people might change their mind about things. God is consistent. What he says continues. We've got a stable basis to make our decisions and to understand how the world works. But also, God is there everywhere. In Psalm 137, the psalmist says, "Where can I go to escape your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go to heaven, you're there. If I make my bed in Sheol, in hell, you're there." God is everywhere, and his character is consistent everywhere. And because all these things are in the nature of God, we can rely that the laws of logic will apply on the surface of Mars or here. We can trust things will be right and reliable. Next slide. So what I'm arguing is that only the Christian God explains why we can trust these patterns that we see around us. There's a reason that science and the scientific revolution arose at a time when people believed the Bible. They believed in the principles of the Bible and the God of the Bible. Without God, we can't really explain why the world is predictable, but we act as if it is. Science, logic, even expecting the kettle to boil, it reveals that we assume there's an ordered world out there, a world that makes sense. Otherwise, we're just hoping things will make sense. Scientists are looking for order in the world because it reflects a God who gave it order. They're not looking for randomness and a random universe. A rational, creative God made us in his image, able to discover the order in the universe. If you're an atheist, all you've got is randomness and you hope that things will stay consistent. You've got a choice. Is it just random guesses about how things were going to be? Or can you rely on a God who is rational, purposeful, and has put a design in the world that we can live in? If your worldview says that there's no design, no ultimate order, that things are just random, then David Hume, sitting up at the top of the Royal Mile, will say, you're really just guessing. The problem he posed will just leave you stuck. You can't say why the world should stay consistent and reliable. Why should there be order? Are we just making these things up? The apple's always fallen down, but maybe it's going to start going up. With the Bible, we've got a worldview that's consistent. It makes sense of the way we actually live our lives. We rely on all these patterns in the world, and the Bible says that God is behind that consistency. That's how we can live. I'm probably repeating myself now, but the God revealed in the Bible makes sense of the way the world actually lives. You're living in a world that God made in an ordered, rational, understandable way. It's not just chance, and it's not just random luck. It's part of God's plan. The Bible says that God created an orderly world that we can trust. You know, even in Genesis, at the start of the Bible, it says that he created day and night, seasons that carry on. In Hebrews, in the New Testament, we read that Jesus upholds the universe by the word of his power. Jesus sustains it all. And it means that the laws of nature work because God is in control. There's a uniformity of nature that we can trust and an order to the universe that we can go and discover. What's the alternative? No rational reason to believe anything. Our brains are just the outworking of billions of years of chance processes and a collection of chemical processes that are engineered for survival, not for truth. Just that's what you've got. But that doesn't make sense because that doesn't reflect how we actually live. We live as if things make sense. There's a Christian philosopher wrote, imagine a person that argues air doesn't exist, there is no air. But while he's making that argument, he keeps breathing. Now, his argument is intellectually, atheists continue to breathe. They continue to use reason and draw scientific conclusions about an orderly universe while denying that there is any order. And The things that make breathing, that make rationality and logic possible are denied. I think I've lost a few. Okay, the next one there. Just looking through at the rest of what we can take from this. The Bible in Romans 1:19 says, what can be known about God is plain to people. God has shown it to them. The patterns that we see in the world, like the seasons or that water will boil when we heat it up, or even knowing that some things are always right and always wrong, wherever you are, they're like God's fingerprints. They reveal the person and the reality of God. We know these things make sense. We live like they make sense, whether we admit it or not. We live day to day as if the Bible is true and the things it says about the world are true. But also in Romans, we're told that people actually suppress that truth. We know that deep down, but the writer Paul in Romans says people suppress the truth. They act and behave and claim that the world's order is just luck. It's just random. They live like the Bible is true, but they claim that everything is just random with no meaning, no order behind it. They sense God's order in the world, but they deny him. The same guy I quoted there said, this is why David Hume's problem ultimately stumps non-Christians, because they sense God's order in the world, but they deny God. And they've therefore got no reason to trust the patterns that they see in the world. He said as well, when Paul says in Romans that men suppress the truth in unrighteousness, he's not saying that people are ignorant. He said they know God, his power, his deity, but they push that knowledge down because they love their own autonomy, their own way. That's why we don't just give people more evidence, because people take the evidence and do what they want with it. The problem is not that we don't have the evidence. The problem is people don't want to know. It's not a lack of information, it's rebellion, he says ultimately. Now, time for a discussion. Would it worry you to think that everyone you meet, every smile, every handshake, every kiss is just a product of some random atoms, that there's no order behind it, no reason for it? Is everything random? And is that how you really live? Let's spend some time thinking about that. Okay, I'm going to pull us back together and we'll head towards a conclusion of tonight. So I hope that was useful chats. We've explored a bit this evening then why we can trust the world's patterns, that like the sun will rise tomorrow. David Hume said we can't prove it that those patterns will hold, and that challenges some of our beliefs in everyday life and in the basis of science. But the Bible offers an answer. The Bible offers a perspective to make sense of it. God created an orderly world, and he sustains it, and we're made in his image so we can explore it, understand it, and seek and discover the order that he put in the world. But we have to start everything with God and with the Word of God. The Bible is the foundation for everything making sense. What if the Bible makes sense of all these problems, and not just that problem? We've got to start everything with the Bible. That's the fundamental. The only way, really, that things make sense. But the Bible says we face a bigger problem, and it's related to that. It says, as I said, we suppress the truth. We see the truth around us in the world, but because we'd rather ignore it, ignore the God that's revealed, we suppress that truth, and we want to go our way. We want autonomy. We want to be in charge. We want to be God. Romans, later on in that letter I mentioned, it says that we've all turned away. We've all turned away from God, denying the truth of what's around us. That's what the Bible calls sin. The Bible tells us that our sin, that attitude, has separated us from God. He's revealed not only the order in the world, but an objective, absolute, consistent standard of right and wrong. And when we compare ourselves to that, we don't match up. And it says there that that sin, we fall short of the glory of God, and ultimately that leads to death. The wages of sin is death. But the gospel, the good news that God reveals in that Bible is there's a solution to that. And the solution is his Son, who will take your sin, take the punishment for your sin, and in return give you his righteousness. It's a gift. As it says there, it's a gift. That's where I want to finish tonight. Jesus makes sense of the world. Why does the world make sense? Because Jesus makes sense of the world. He holds it together. He is the logic, the logos, the order, the truth behind it all. He offers you a way to understand the world, but also a way to get to know and to get to the God who created it all. And it's revealed in the Bible. You need to start with the Bible. I hope we've given you something to think about tonight, and I've not just confused all the first-year philosophy students that are now totally put off. I hope we've given you something to think about. If you want to talk to any of us tonight, David, Sean, Matthew, myself, Eric, we can talk to you about what we believe, why we believe this about Jesus. We've also got some books you can take. There's books on the table there, the Have You Ever Wondered book, and there's lots of similar questions in the book. Have you ever wondered why maths works? Have you ever wondered why some things are right and wrong? There's things in the book, so please take a copy of the book and look at that and answer some questions. You'll find some questions answered there. But don't rush off tonight. You can stay and chat. Agate and Phil are going to do one more song before we finish. So as I said, don't rush off. You've got the book there. Just for people that are regulars, Agate next Sunday afternoon or after the morning service is going to talk about what she did this summer in Uganda, 12:30 next Sunday. But hand over to Agate and Phil, and please stay and chat at the end.
Okay, so we're gonna play Psalm 23. And if you know the song, feel free to sing along with us. The Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I need. You lead me to the safest places. You lead me to the safest places. To walk in the meadow and lie by the stream. You meet me at the quietest places. You meet me at the quietest places. Your goodness and your mercy will follow me all the days of my life, all the days of my life. And I dwell in your house for eternity. I'll be there by your side. I'll be there by your side. Though I walk through the valley, the shadow of death, I don't have to fear no evil, for I know that you are with me. With oil of blessing you cover my head. You fill me to overflowing. My cup is overflowing. Your goodness and your mercy will follow me all the days of my life, all the days of my life. And I dwell in your house for eternity. I'll be there by your side. I'll be there by your side all the days of my life. I'll be there by your side. You prepare a table before me, right in front of my enemies. You're the shepherd of my soul. You lead me in the right direction, my comfort and my protection. You're the shepherd of my soul. You prepare a table before me, right in front of my enemies. You're the shepherd of my soul. You lead me in the right direction, my comfort and my protection. You're the shepherd of my soul, and your goodness, your mercy will follow me all the days of my life, all the days of my life. And I dwell in your house for eternity. I'll be there by your side. I'll be there by your side all the days of my life, all the days of my life. I'll be there by your side all the days of my life.
Thanks, Aga. Thanks, Phil. I said don't rush off. There's still plenty of crisps and drinks, and we can bring more down if you need them. So stay and chat. Thanks, Anna. No, it's fine. I lost myself a couple of times. So.